My name is Jack Dinney. I'm a Permit Evaluator Program or Project Manager in the Maryland section of the Baltimore District Regulatory Branch. I will be presenting an overview of the new Regional General Permit for activities associated with the Chesapeake Bay Total Maximum Daily Load Program. My intent is to walk through the 14 sections of the new Regional General Permit section by section to give folks a general idea of its terms and conditions and where to find specific information. There's a lot of information to cover in the allotted time, so some of the slides may not be up for very long. I apologize in advance for that, but all the webinar contents will be uploaded to the website for the new RGP for future reference. As Beth said in her presentation, a general permit is a form of a Department of Army authorization that is issued on a nationwide or regional basis for a category or categories of activities where the activities are substantially similar in nature and cause only minimal individual and cumulative environmental impacts. Regional general permits are also meant to help reduce unnecessary regulatory effort in order to help expedite the permitting process. In most cases, regional general permits contain conditions to further ensure that environmental impacts are minimal, including conditions for the submittal of a permit application prior to activities occurring within waters of the U.S. To ensure compliance with any regional general permit, you must carefully read all the terms and conditions of the RGP prior to initiating construction activities in waters of the U.S. As Beth said earlier, we are referring to the new Chesapeake Bay Total Maximum Daily Load Regional General Permit as the Bay TMDL RGP. It went into effect on July 1st, 2015, and is valid for a 5-year period. It will expire on June 30th, 2020. Similar to the Maryland State Programmatic General Permit, throughout the 5-year implementation period, we will monitor the effectiveness of the new Bay TMDL RGP, and based on that evaluation, approximately 1 year before its expiration, the Baltimore District will determine if we will seek to reissue the RGP, modify and reissue the RGP, or simply let it expire. There will be a public notice announcing our intent and a public comment period prior to any final decision. As I said, this presentation is a brief walk through the terms and conditions of the new Bay TMDL RGP. We'll move sequentially through each section of the permit and highlight its contents. The first part of the document covers which activities are eligible for authorization under the Bay TMDL RGP and which are not, the impact and conversion thresholds, and the stream assessment and degradation criteria. I will also briefly cover the application submittal thresholds, the corresponding forms, agency coordination, and some of the general conditions at the end of the document. After this presentation, Nick Osborne will provide some additional detail on working with the impact and conversion thresholds and how to determine the appropriate application submittal category and the authorization process associated with it. We will also walk through a sample project. While we hope this webinar will help familiarize folks with the new RGP, it is not a substitute for a thorough reading of the document. The regulatory authorities for the Bay TMDL RGP come from Section 10 of the Rivers and Harbors Act and Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. The Bay TMDL RGP is applicable to the Chesapeake Bay watershed within the state of Maryland, the entire District of Columbia, and Fort Belvoir, Fort Myers, and the Pentagon in Virginia. Here's a map basically showing the Chesapeake Bay watershed, the Baltimore District regulatory boundaries within Maryland. And shaded in there is the District of Columbia and the applicable area within the Chesapeake Bay watershed within Maryland. Excluded waters of the U.S. include all tidal waters and those waters of the U.S. in Maryland associated with the C&D Canal within the geographic boundaries of the Philadelphia District Regulatory Branch, and those areas in the far west and the far east of Maryland that do not drain to the Chesapeake Bay. The Bay TMDL RGP has a total temporary and permanent impact threshold of 1 acre. Of that total impact area, no more than 2,000 linear feet of stream, rivers, open water, or any combination may be impacted regardless of the flow regime. Again, temporary and permanent impacts count toward the impact threshold of 1 acre, direct and indirect impacts as well. Please also remember to include both linear feet and square feet of proposed stream impacts in your impact totals. All the component impacts of a single and complete project must be authorized together. General Condition 15 in Section 13 of the RGP covers what constitutes a single and complete project for core review. If there are questions about what single and complete entails, please contact us. For retrofit activities, the impacts have to be associated with the retrofit of an existing facility or structure, and they must be the minimum impacts to waters of the U.S. necessary to accomplish the nutrient and sediment reduction goals for that project. For stream and wetland restoration and enhancement activities, the impacts to waters of the U.S. must also be limited to the minimum necessary to restore functions that support nutrient and sediment reduction goals for the purposes of the Bay TMDL, and to restore functions that support and/or enhance aquatic biological resources at the project site. Proposed impacts for reestablishment or rehabilitation of aquatic resource types in areas where those habitat types previously existed may not count as conversion impacts. If you feel your project meets this condition, please schedule a pre-application meeting to get core concurrence. The Bay TMDL RGP may also be used to authorize multiple conversion types for an overall project, provided the total extent of all conversion types does not exceed 10,000 square feet of all waters of the U.S., including 500 linear feet of streams, rivers, and other open waters. Conversion is defined in Section 14, and Section 4, subsection D of the RGP explains specific conversion types and their individual impact thresholds. Nick will also cover conversion in more detail in his presentation. Section 4 of the Bay TMDL RGP lists 4 conversion types with specific conversion thresholds. For example, the conversion threshold for converting forested non-tidal wetlands to emergent non-tidal wetlands is 5,000 square feet. The conversion threshold for converting a stream to open water or a wetland is 10,000 square feet or 500 linear feet. Table 1 of the Bay TMDL RGP provides an overview of the conversion thresholds. Again, I want to stress that while the Bay TMDL RGP may be used to authorize multiple conversion types up to their individual conversion thresholds, there is a total combined conversion threshold of 10,000 square feet, including 500 linear feet. Section 5 covers activities authorized by the Bay TMDL RGP. Where a core permit is required, the RGP authorizes the retrofit of existing stormwater management facilities and the retrofit of stormwater management outfalls. If you're not sure if a core permit would be required for your proposed retrofit, please contact us. The Bay TMDL RGP can also authorize restoration and enhancement of non-tidal streams and wetlands with some minimal conversion impacts. In order to qualify for the Bay TMDL RGP, the activity must be part of an acceptable watershed strategy whose purpose is to identify activities necessary to meet the nutrient and sediment load reduction targets of the Bay TMDL. The most common example of one of these watershed strategies is an approved Watershed Implementation Plan, or WIP. Again, it's important to stress that for wetland and stream restoration and/or enhancement activities, they must restore functions that provide sediment and/or nutrient reduction and support or enhance aquatic biological resources at the project site. The Bay TMDL RGP also may authorize relocation and/or conversion of waters of the U.S. provided it meets the impact conversion thresholds found in Section 4. Relocation is defined in Section 14 of the RGP. The Bay TMDL RGP also may authorize temporary impacts associated with construction structures, temporary fills, temporary construction access, and temporary dewatering, provided it meets the RGP's general conditions found in Section 13. The impact numbers for those components of the project should also be included in the project's total impacts. Section 6 requires stream assessment and degradation criteria. This section only applies to stream restoration and/or enhancement activities. The Bay TMDL RGP requires current stream conditions be assessed for each stream reach, and in order to qualify for an authorization, each reach must meet stream degradation criteria for both a biological function-based parameter and a fluvial geomorphic hydrologic function-based parameter. This is implemented to ensure that restoration activities are focused on higher priority degraded stream reaches and not on higher functioning stream reaches. The biological function-based parameter required will vary depending upon the stream reach's flow regime. For perennial streams, the biological function-based parameter is the benthic index of biotic integrity, or BIBI. For a stream reach to qualify, the BIBI score must be fair or worse. All stream reaches, regardless of flow regime, must also have a fluvial geomorphic hydrologic function-based parameter documenting at least one degradation factor. The stream assessment should indicate there's evidence of lateral instability, floodplain disconnection, or some other core-approved geomorphic hydrologic degradation factor. We are recommending using a modified EPA rapid bioassessment protocol found in Appendix 1 of the Bay TMDL RGP for the biological function-based parameter for stream reaches with ephemeral or intermittent flow regimes. When using the modified rapid bioassessment protocol, the stream reach needs a score of marginal to poor to qualify as degraded under the Bay TMDL RGP. Please coordinate with us if you plan to use a different assessment methodology. The geomorphic hydrologic function-based parameter requirement for streams with an ephemeral or intermittent flow regime is the same as for perennial, with at least one documented degradation factor. Please note that for all stream restoration and enhancement projects, the project objectives and design should clearly align with the documented degradation and the function-based parameters. And in some cases, the documentation of stream reach biological and geomorphic hydrologic degradation will serve as the baseline for monitoring the enhancement or restoration of the aquatic resource function at the project site over a 5-year period. Section 7 covers activities not authorized by the Bay TMDL RGP. Of course, this includes any activity that exceeds the impact and conversion thresholds of the RGP and any work in tidal waters in the United States. It also includes stream and wetland restoration enhancement activities that only reduce sediment or nutrients, or stream and wetland restoration enhancement activities that do not restore or enhance aquatic biological resource functions at the project site, or stream restoration or enhancement activities located in stable or healthy stream reaches based on the functional assessments. The Bay TMDL RGP also cannot be used to authorize stream channelization or the piping of streams, the construction of new stormwater management facilities, or activities that convert a stream to a permanent impoundment and block aquatic life movement. It also does not apply to acid mine drainage reclamation projects. It cannot be used for compensatory mitigation projects or be associated with enforcement actions. It's important to remember that the Bay TMDL RGP is only one of several Department of Army permit types available to authorize proposed activities. So even if a proposed project does not qualify for the Bay TMDL RGP, it could still be evaluated for another type of authorization. Section 8 is a reminder to applicants that a Bay TMDL RGP authorization does not eliminate the need to obtain all other federal, state, and local permits required by law. Section 9 of the RGP explains how to obtain and apply for an authorization. There are 3 application submittal thresholds. Which of the 3 application thresholds you qualify for is dependent upon the type of activity you're proposing, the total impacts including conversion impacts associated with the proposal, and in some cases the location of the project relative to other resources. For example, if a project is located near a federal flood control project, a historic property, or a threatened endangered species, the application thresholds are meant to be a sliding scale of documentation and coordination based on increasing project scope and impacts. The three application submittal thresholds are Category 1, self-verification, Category 2, self-verification with post-construction documentation requirements, and Category 3, pre-construction notification. Appendix 2 of the Bay TMDL RGP has a self-verification form that an applicant must complete for Category 1 and Category 2 activities. Similarly, Appendix 3 has the pre-construction notification form. The PCN will be submitted with the appropriate permit application for core review and written verification. Here's a copy of page 1 and page 2 of the self-verification form found in Appendix 2. It's designed to guide an applicant through a series of questions to confirm the application submittal level is correct. The PCN form will also guide an applicant through a series of yes/no questions and checkboxes to confirm the application submittal is correct. Here's a closer view of page 2 of the self-verification form. There will be a link on the Bay TMDL RGP website to a fillable form PDF version of both the self-verification and the PCN forms. In Section 10 of the Bay TMDL RGP, you will find Table 2, which identifies the application submittal thresholds associated with specific activities and their impacts to waters of the U.S. Category 1 self-verification applies to several specific activity types, such as the retrofit of existing stormwater management facilities. In addition, projects with total impacts, temporary and permanent, less than 200 linear feet or 5,000 square feet, and which do not occur in wetlands also qualify for Category 1 self-verification. Category 2 self-verification with a 90-day as-built report and a function-based assessment requirement applies to projects with a specific range of impacts to non-tidal waters of the U.S., including jurisdictional non-tidal wetlands. The Category 2 self-verifications are projects with total temporary and permanent impacts greater than 5,000 square feet, but not exceeding 10,000 square feet, or total temporary and permanent impacts greater than 200 linear feet, but not exceeding 500 linear feet of streams, rivers, or other open waters, or projects with not more than a total temporary and permanent impact of 5,000 square feet to non-tidal wetlands. Category 2 self-verifications do have document submittal requirements of an as-built plan and a function-based assessment for stream impacts within 90 days of project completion. More information on the required documentation can be found in General Condition 5. Please remember that all the terms and conditions of the Bay TMDL RGP still apply to Category 1, Category 2 self-verifying activities. These self-verifying activities may commence without written verification from the Corps after the applicant has confirmed the activity will be conducted in compliance with the terms and conditions of the Bay TMDL RGP, including securing all other appropriate federal, state, and local authorizations, and completing all the required consultations in the general conditions of Section 13. Applicants must also submit a completed self-verification notification form found in Appendix 2. Additional information regarding the various forms and applicable joint permit applications based on locality can be found at the Bay TMDL RGP website. Also, if you have any questions, you can contact us. The final application submittal threshold is Category 3 activities. All projects that require Category 3 review will submit the pre-construction notification form as part of the permit application. In this case, there will be at least some level of Corps review, and the applicant must receive written verification from the Corps prior to the work beginning. Category 3 activities based solely on impact thresholds will also be required to conduct 5 years of project monitoring and function-based assessments. The monitoring requirements can be found in General Condition 6 in Section 13. The basis for this required documentation is to ensure the integrity of the work, the success of the vegetation, as well as documenting that there has been an improvement in the aquatic resource function at the project site. The second group of Category 3 activities are projects that require a Corps review not necessarily because of the level of proposed impact, but due to the nature or location of the proposed project. For example, projects which have the potential to affect any historic property listed or potentially eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. Section 11, the permit application, contains the information required for a complete application for core review. The required project elements should be pretty standard to anyone who has ever previously applied for an authorization. Project description, project goals and objectives, the nature of the activity, project drawings, impact plates, a breakout of impacts by category and type in the table, etc. Similarly, many of the compliance elements should be familiar with previous applicants. New elements include a statement that describes the watershed strategy and how it supports the proposed activity. You will also need a function-based assessment. This is your baseline that documents the level of degradation at the project site. You will need to include a plan to restore your temporary impacts and evidence that you've completed coordination with the State Historic Preservation Office concerning historic properties. The websites for that coordination are included in Section 11, subsection A4. Also, you need to include evidence of coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife concerning federally listed or proposed threatened and endangered species or critical habitat. The websites for that coordination are included in Section 11, subsection A5. Section 12 is agency coordination. All Category 3 activities will come to the Corps for review and written verification. In addition, a subset of these applications will have a 15-day resource agency coordination period. Specifically, applications with greater than ½ an acre of proposed impacts to waters of the U.S., including non-tidal wetlands, or greater than 1,000 linear feet of proposed impacts to streams, or greater than 10,000 square feet of proposed impacts to non-tidal wetlands. In addition, agency coordination will be conducted for all applications which have the potential to cause effects to historic properties or threatened and endangered species. Also, all applications reviewed by the Corps will be coordinated with the regional federally recognized Native American tribes for a minimum of 30 days. Section 13 contains the general conditions. As I said earlier, a regional general permit relies in part upon its general conditions to assure the authorized activities are minimal impacts individually and cumulatively. The Bay TMDL RGP has 57 general conditions. The majority of these conditions are not unique to the Bay TMDL RGP. In fact, it shares over 40 general conditions with the MDSP GP4. Nevertheless, an activity does not qualify for verification under the Bay TMDL RGP unless it satisfies all the applicable general conditions. For the sake of time, I will not be going over all the general conditions, but will highlight several. As I said a couple times, General Condition 5 is the as-built and post-construction reporting. It's very important for Category 2 activities. It describes what documentation you need to provide in order to be in compliance with this condition. Similarly, General Condition 6 describes the 5-year monitoring documentation required for some Category 3 activities. As explained in General Condition 8, each permittee who receives a verification letter from the Corps will get a compliance certification form. Once the project is completed, the permittee is required to complete, sign, and return the Certificate of Compliance. A copy of the certificate is also in Appendix 4. General Condition 14, the Corps retains discretionary authority to require processing of an individual permit for any project based on concerns for the aquatic environment or any other factor of the public interest. This authority is exercised on a case-by-case basis. General Condition 25, cold water streams, requires that to the maximum extent practicable, no activity may increase water temperatures in cool water streams that adversely affect aquatic species indigenous to that water body. General Condition 34 requires the activity must be designed to avoid and minimize adverse impacts, both temporary and permanent, to waters of the United States to the maximum extent practicable at the project site. General Condition 39, aquatic life movement, requires that no activity may substantially disrupt the necessary life cycle movements of those species of aquatic life indigenous to the water body, including those species that normally migrate through or nurse and spawn within an area. A low-flow channel must be maintained through any discharge or fill placed across a stream channel. General Condition 46, Adverse Effects from Impoundments, requires that adverse effects on the aquatic system due to accelerating the passage of water or restricting its flow, which results from the construction of an impoundment, must be minimized to the maximum extent practicable. General Condition 48, Inspections. In addition to having a copy of the permit and any verification letter available at the project site, the permittee must permit the Corps or authorized representatives to make periodic inspections at any time deemed necessary to ensure the work is being performed in accordance with the terms and conditions of the Bay TMDL RGP. General Condition 52, Special Conditions. The Corps may include special conditions on any project authorized under the Bay TMDL RGP. General Condition 57, Grandfathering Provision. Activities authorized under the Bay TMDL RGP that have commenced work or under contract to commence work in reliance upon the authorization will have 12 months from the date of the Bay TMDL RGP's expiration, modification, or revocation to complete the activity under the terms and conditions of the authorization. It is the permittee's responsibility to stay aware of the expiration date of their authorization. The remaining sections of the Bay TMDL RGP are the definitions, and then the 5 appendices that include the modified EPA Rapid Bioassessment Protocol, the self-verification, and pre-construction notification forms. If you need any additional clarification on a term or a section or help understanding a form, you can please contact us. And once again, here's the contact information for some of the team members, as well as the Bay TMDL RGP website. As I said earlier, presentations from this webinar will be posted to the Bay TMDL RGP website. It will also have links and tools designed to help guide applicants through the process. That concludes my presentation. I want to thank you for your time, and I guess we'll try and address some questions. All right. First question, the 15-day agency coordination, is this between the Corps and the applicant prior to submittal or between the Corps and other agencies after the submittal? The 15-day agency coordination is between the Corps and other state and federal resource agencies such as EPA after receipt of the complete application. Why are stream or wetland restoration and enhancement activities implemented for the sole purpose of nutrient or sediment reduction not authorized by the Bay TMDL RGP? In addition to meeting the TMDL goals, restoration and enhancement projects must also restore functions that support and or enhance aquatic biological resources at the project site to ensure that the activity has no more than minimal adverse impacts. What is the difference between a regional general permit and an individual permit? A regional general permit is issued for certain recurring activities with impacts that have been determined to be minimal individually and cumulatively. Individual permits are for impacts that are more complex and may have more than minimal individual or cumulative effects to the aquatic environment. An individual permit requires a public notice, a full-blown project-specific evaluation of alternatives, and an environmental assessment. Can you clarify whether a JPA is still required to be submitted for MDE review? Yes. As I said, getting the TMDL RGP is only the federal portion of any authorization. You still need to get all other appropriate federal, state, and local authorizations. So in most cases, even like on the self-verifying activities, you'll still be filling out a JPA in I think most localities to make sure you comply with the state and local